This is Polyamory Weekly, tales from the front of responsible non-monogamy from a pansexual, kink-friendly point of view. A warning for our under-18 listeners. This is an adult-oriented podcast about really lascivious things, like communication and honesty in relationships. If you're under 18 and looking for upfront advice and answers to questions about sex, please visit scarletteen.com.
This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 529 for August 31st, 2017. Coming up on today's show, Polyamory and Science Fiction with guest host Erich Viege. Hello everyone, I am your host Minx, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. However, I have a special surprise for you today. I am taking the week off. That's right, I'm about to start a new job, finish up my fun employment, and packing and preparing so I can move in with Lusty Guy and Elle at the 1st of October. And, I'm taking the week off. But don't worry, I would not leave you hanging. An amazing friend and listener reached out to me a little bit ago and said, "Hey, heard you're having a hard time. How would you feel if I created some content for you?" Now, what podcaster would say no to that? Big shout out to Erich Viege, our newest South African correspondent, for organizing and recording and editing this fantastic interview with a sci-fi publisher talking about the nascent popularity of polyamory and its crossover with science fiction. Erich, I love you not only because you created awesome content, but because you're giving me a week off.
Hello there, I'm Erich Viege. Popular culture is not exactly swimming in polyamorous role models. If you're a science fiction, fantasy, or mystery suspense fan, you're in for a treat. I was hanging out on a polyamory Facebook group the other day and I ran into Alisa Gus, who's a book publisher at Curiosity Quills Press. Her company has not one, but two new series coming out in the last quarter of 2017, both featuring polyamorous relationships as a backdrop to the main story. So if you're a writer and have a novel featuring non-traditional relationships, Curiosity Quills is accepting submissions. And if you're a reader interested in reading about polyamorous relationships, Curiosity Quills has a special offering just for you. And you heard it here on Polyweekly. So keep listening. Here's Alisa Gus from Curiosity Quills.
So I am actually poly, I identify as such, but my husband is mono, and so since we had gotten together, I have been obviously with him, and we had agreed early on that it would be a mono relationship, which is fine with me. But I had always been interested in fiction that features polyamorous elements in a way that doesn't actually glorify, sex for the sake of sex, basically, and more just puts polyamorous, main characters or any characters for that matter in a setting that I could relate to as a normal reader. I was looking for something like that to publish, and unfortunately, nothing like that had come up. And finally, it did. So now we have two different series, one that has just launched and another that is running in November that would in fact feature polyamorous characters, which I'm really excited about. I feel that it's really lacking in representation.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And it does seem to me, though, that polyamorous relationships are becoming more mainstream, or there does seem to be a bit more of a demand. What's your experience been of that?
Well, I can certainly say that in terms of romance, it's been insanely popular. But in terms of actual, non-romance background, still not that much. I mean, obviously there is Robert Jordan, there is your Heinlein, but in terms of actually really seeing it as a commonplace setting, I haven't had much luck finding it as a reading material. I know there is a show that's out that really features a poly relationship, and it's great, and I'm hearing really great things about it. And I feel like since, at least in the United States, since gay marriage was ruled constitutional, there has been a lot more interest in really exploring the poly side of it, not maybe in terms of making it legal, but at least acceptable in the public view.
And what's been the response to your series? You said the one's already out and the other one's launching in November. What's been the response?
Well, actually, the first one, the response has been really interested. The thing that I liked about it is that it really never really mentioned, I suppose, the poly aspect of it. The response was, the story is interesting. I like the characters. I like the interaction. That sort of thing. Some people didn't really like it because they felt it was a little too violent. And part of it is, they're right. But the poly relationship has been accepted. And that was really great for me because no one really went and it's like, oh, this is something I'm not going to read or I didn't like because of the poly aspect. No, it was just taken as granted. And to me, that's how it should be. I mean, what people do with their loved ones, so long as it's, legal and doesn't hurt anyone, should actually be accepted. And I don't feel it should really be a point of discussion. It's a right of people to practice what they like.
From my point of view, I think, Robert Heinlein and the other science fiction authors you mentioned, Robert Jordan, for example, those guys helped bring the idea of polyamory into the mainstream, but it's still seen as a science fiction thing that can't really happen here, Do you think that these books of yours or these series of yours, do you think that people will think, okay, this is a relationship style that we can actually adopt on Earth?
Well, they are both science fiction, but they're actually, I guess, much closer to something that would be seen as the norm than, I suppose, than obviously Heinlein and Jordan, especially the one that's already out. It features a dystopian future, yes, but it's about maybe 5 years from now, maybe even now, and it really shows what could have happened. And the fact that people have chosen to enter into a polyamorous relationship, to me, just feels like, yes, they did, but it's never really a focus of the story. It's more like those people have fallen in love and that's how they will be. And it just feels like it actually paints a lot more realistic picture instead of really focusing on the aspect of it as the main story, as something that sets the characters apart. They're normal people, and they're people who have been faced with difficult odds. And if they happen to find solace in each other, well, more power to them. And I feel that that's really a message that I wanted to send.
Would you be welcoming manuscripts from people in science fiction, in the genres you publish, to feature more polyamorous relationships? Is that something that you're actively looking for?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I believe I even have it listed in my what I'm looking for. I'm actually looking for a lot of magical realism. I'm looking for a lot of MG, which is middle grade. And I believe I'm also mentioning non-traditional relationships, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. But again, I have received a ton of submissions where it's actually part of, the romance category. And I have had to turn it down because this is just not something that I'm interested in as a reader or as a publisher. So obviously I would want a story that features polyamorous characters rather than, just focuses on that as the only story in the book.
Have you noticed more representation of polyamorous relationships in the popular culture?
I have, and I've been reading a lot of articles on the topic as well, and a lot more people really coming out as being in open relationships, such as, I believe, Neil Gaiman and his wife, as far as I don't know. So this is great. I mean, and I'm glad that, I guess, the hubbub is dying down. I believe it came out maybe 5 or 7 years ago. There's been a lot of hissing going on Twitter and everywhere where this was mentioned. And in fact, I believe specifically the wife has been targeted as, the slut in the relationship. And recently there's been another interview and it was taken as granted. It was fine. They have a kid. They're doing what they like. They're popular, and it's great. And I think it's kind of paints a really positive role model for the movement.
And thanks to Alan at Poly in the Media, I tracked down the interview Alisa was talking about. Neil Gaiman's wife, of course, is Amanda Palmer, and she spoke about her and Neil's relationship on the podcast Talk the Line.
Welcome to Talk the Line. I'm Jen Long, and every week I chat to an artist or musician about their deepest passions, interests, just what makes up their life. This week, I'm talking to the inimitable Amanda Palmer.
Can I ask you about your open marriage, or did you say that at the start and now you actually regret saying it?
I don't. I have no regrets.
No regrets. So is it something that you decided later on?
No. It was a condition of our relationship.
So who imposed?
We both did.
Oh my God.
We're pretty...
Listening to the podcast, it sounds like Neil Gaiman and Amanda Palmer aren't exactly polyamorous, but they're definitely non-monogamous. And when British music podcasts start talking about non-monogamy, it proves there's an appetite for stories about polyamory, and Alisa Gus wants to capitalize on it. Curiosity Quills wants to sell their own books and even partner with other publishers to bring more books telling stories of non-monogamous relationships.
One of the things we're going to be doing as a publishing house, and in fact have just begun doing, is putting out a subscription box where we are actually getting books specifically to the doors of the readers, bypassing bookstores, bypassing, Amazon and so on. So if people want to subscribe to specifically like sci-fi books as by Curiosity Quills and other publishing houses we are working with, great, we would be sending them over to you at actually big box store prices. And one of the things I wanted to do, if there is interest in the poly community, to actually curate a box specifically featuring polyamorous characters, whether the ones that we are publishing or those are being published by other publishing houses that we can really get behind as readers, and to kind of make it available.
How would that work? So you say we subscribe to a box. How would that work?
Oh, pretty easy. You'd basically subscribe to books. Sometimes there is swag. You can decide whether you want swag, being like T-shirt, it's whatever it is that would be a swag for the month. It usually would be in keeping with the books themselves. And 2 books. And what would happen is we would be printing them using our printers and packaging them into a box that would arrive at your door at one day of the month for you to read and enjoy and whatever. And then at the same time, we are preparing a subscription for the next month. And if there is specifically interest, we can tailor a subscription to polyamorous characters. And obviously, we cannot publish, 24 books a year specifically featuring polyamorous characters. We might not even get that many submissions. But if we were to partner with other publishing houses, I'm sure we would be able to get that many books. Because, as I said, there is a lot more interest now in it, and we would be able to really meet the demand of the community, really curated and really based on what people would be interested in reading specifically.
That's unbelievable. So I'm going to subscribe for some dollars a month, and then once a month, a physical box will arrive with physical books in it, and then I can have it, and I might buy a T-shirt or something and have the swag as well. Is that how it works?
So basically, there are 2 different pricing schedules. So on one, that would be just the books, if that's all you want. And a lot of people do, especially like for myself. If I were subscribing to a box, I would probably not want swag. But some people actually do enjoy getting the swag, which is great. So you can subscribe to this version, which would mean you get to specifically pick. And then it would arrive kind of like maybe a T-shirt featuring this month's theme, like for Halloween, or it might be like an inkwell, or, something that would really be like a nice souvenir. We feel that we kind of want to break off from Amazon, which is what constrains us here in the US. And also, obviously, there is a shrinking floor space as the bookstores are closing down. So we really just want to be able to reach our readers directly and actually kind of have a cumulative marketing in that sense that we kind of get to interact with the readers, get their opinions, have them request specific books and so on, which we really cannot do if we're selling to the store.
Where can we subscribe to these offerings that you've got?
Well, actually, you could go on Curiosity Quills Press. There is a link to subscriptions. Right now, there's your standard sci-fi and fantasy subscriptions. But if there is, for example, interest in a community from polyamorous books, then there would be a separate box that we can actually open up, and you could subscribe there. And then also we are working with schools, for example, and we are going to be putting together a box specifically of middle grade literature, and that's going to be another box that's popping up. So really we really want to be really selective in what goes into each box so that the audience always receives specifically what they're looking for. And that's kind of the whole idea behind one of our mottos in Curiosity Quills Press is find your escape. Let us be yours. And that's exactly what we're hoping to be.
And submissions, if people have got a submission, where are your submission guidelines?
Well, they're actually listed on our main site at Curiosity Quills Press. And also, if people are interested in specifically submitting to me, they can just send it to my email address. And they can even mark it that it does have maybe, poly angle or like a magical realism angle. And I would be much more likely to check it. We have at least 5 to 10 submissions daily, if not more. And so I would be happy to give sort of a preference and a first look to those that are specifically in the genres or featuring the themes that I'm looking for, which obviously falls under this realm.
Where can people get hold of you? Give me your social media and your website.
Well, I'm at curiosityquills.com, and my email is curiosity@curiosityquills.com. So also I'm on Twitter a lot, and I'm called Wampa Chick. So happy to hear from everyone.
After I spoke to Alisa, I confirmed that Curiosity Quills will indeed start a subscription box, especially featuring polyamorous relationships. If you're just interested in buying the books or checking out the series, go to curiosityquills.com. We'll put all the links in the show notes at polyweekly.com. There's a series there set in ancient Egypt called Kiya, Hope of the Pharaoh, which has got rave reviews online. And then there's the new hard-hitting series by Beverly Williams about a character called Kit, called Survival Kit's Apocalypse. Trigger warning on that one for violence. And just in time for the December holidays, a book by the Australian author Ruth Fox Sinclair called White Pavilion. You can follow Curiosity Quills on Twitter at Curiosity Quills. You can support the show by making a donation at polyweekly.com. Please send comments, questions, and feedback to polyweekly@gmail.com or call on the listener comment line at 802-505-POLY. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/polyweekly. We're on Twitter at polyweekly, and the host, Cunning Minx, is on Twitter at Cunning Minx. Thanks for listening. And remember, it's not all about the sex.